Okay. Good evening, advocates. I'm Dana Playton, New York State PTA President, and I am thrilled to welcome all of you this evening to our second annual virtual legislative summit. You may have noticed that I'm still wearing my t-shirt that I wore to school today. We're celebrating 100 days of kindergarten. I'm a paraprofessional in a kindergarten classroom, and it was very exciting, lots of activities. And this year I feel especially festive because how awesome is it that our kids have been in school 100 days without any interruptions to their learning, no remote instruction, and it's really been fantastic. So I'm wishing all of you a happy 100 days of school, and just think, only 80 more until summer vacation. As you know, advocacy is at the heart of the PTA mission. We are a powerful voice for all children, a relevant resource of families and communities, and a strong advocate for the education and well-being of every child. Speaking up and taking action on behalf of children and youth is what we do. It is our job to be the voice of children, to see that they are supported no matter their zip code. Your voice is critical to their success, and we need you. I'm truly excited that we have so many advocates participating here tonight. You will hear from experts in the fields of school aid, education, and mental health, along with our own PTA experts over the next 3 hours. This event is only possible because of the outstanding and extraordinary work of our advocacy team, affectionately known around here as the A-Team. Their many hours of hard work and dedication will bring you an informative, thought-provoking, and robust program that I know everyone will thoroughly enjoy. My heartfelt thanks to Legislation Coordinator Susan Fisher, our first Vice President Helen Hoffman, and to the incredible A-Team for putting this event together. On behalf of our 2.6 million school children, my thanks to each and every one of you for being a part of our summit and being a part of our legislative meetings, which will be scheduled shortly and you'll be getting information about soon. Thank you for coming together to shine a light on every child with one voice, and thank you for all you do. I appreciate it. I'm going to turn it over to Susan for just a few announcements, and then we'll get started with our program. Susan?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Dana, for that wonderful introduction. And I just wanted to remind everyone that you get to keep your cameras off. Please keep yourselves muted. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to use the chat. We'll be monitoring that all night. And we will be having some live portions. Commissioner Rosa is already here. We will have Senator Mayer live. We'll have some pre-recorded videos for you and some informational videos. And then we're going to break out into live breakout sessions to do some more training in a smaller group. So I hope you guys enjoy, and we will get started.
Okay. It's now my true honor to introduce our Commissioner of Education, Dr. Betty Rosa. Dr. Rosa was appointed as a permanent commissioner on February 8th in 2021 by the Board of Regents. She's a longtime valued partner of New York State PTA, and she's the first Latina woman to serve in this position. Before her permanent appointment last year, Dr. Rosa served as the interim commissioner since August of 2020, and prior to that, she served on the Board of Regents since 2008. She was the chancellor of the Board of Regents in 2016. She was elected by her colleagues on the Board of Regents to be the chancellor in 2016. She is a nationally recognized education leader, and she began her career in the New York City Department of Education as a bilingual paraprofessional, teacher, and reading coordinator. She also served as an assistant principal and a principal in special education. In 1998, Dr. Rosa was appointed to the position of Superintendent of Community School District 8 in the Bronx, and later appointed to serve as the Senior Superintendent of the Bronx. Dr. Rosa has more than 30 years of instructional and administrative experience with an expertise in inclusive education, cooperative teaching models, student achievement, and policy implementation. Throughout her career, Dr. Rosa has been honored with many awards and recognitions. She's really something. And on a personal note, I've had the pleasure of getting to know Dr. Rosa over the last several years. As I advocated for a meaningful diploma option for my special needs son and for others like him, she always listened to what I had to say, and she always made me feel heard. even when I may have been stalking her every now and again. One of my happiest mom moments was when Tyler and I attended a Board of Regents meeting where Dr. Rosa welcomed us and introduced him to the other regents as a Regent high school graduate and a recipient of the then brand new superintendent's determination diploma. He was just beaming with pride and accomplishment, and I had tears in my eyes. I think we all did. It was really a moving moment. Now, as president of New York State PTA, we have monthly Zoom meetings, and I'm so appreciative of the wonderful collaboration that New York State PTA has with the State Education Department. Our meetings are conversational, they're wonderful discussions, very informative, and a real sharing of information. And I enjoy them every month and look forward to them. And so, without further ado, I offer a warm and heartfelt welcome to Commissioner Rosa. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Dana, and thank you, Kyle, and thank you to the Team A. That is so exciting. And again, congratulations for your happy 100th day. First and foremost, I just saw somebody who put on the chat, being a PTA of District 10, 11. It's so exciting to know that that individuals are so committed to this work, and you're committed to this work obviously because of your passion and caring about our students. So to begin, all of you who know this work know that my vision for a kinder and a more inclusive and a world that really looks at the contributions and the issue of empathy and really do the work every day, knowing that we have to really show more acts of tolerance and civility. And that many of the acts that we have seen, isolated scenes, but also some of the collective incidents that are really, in my opinion, are hateful acts, need to be countered with some of the fabulous and things that you do in terms of your kindness, your idea of inclusiveness, and creating the kind of world that we want for all of our children. In many ways, COVID has challenged our ability to be a civil society. And we must agree that we must continue to be models, role models for our amazing young people as they move forward in their development. My vision is for a world where we can learn from one another, where our differences bring us closer together, and where our common sense of purpose drives the agenda. It's a vision of empathy, sympathy, caring, and respect. And it's within our reach if we all put our sense of commitment to doing this good work. But to get there, we all need to make sure that we truly, in our heart of hearts, have the belief systems in us to know that all means all. I know that as we advance what I call the pillars of this amazing work are very much a part of our fabric. The pillars that we really want to be inclusive, the pillar that we want to create a commitment to diversity, to equity, and to inclusiveness. A pillar that, you know, I truly want this department to create a support system for all of your amazing work, and that we do that through partnership, and that we do that because we all believe that collectively all of our work together is a priority. The regents and the department have, as you know, have advanced the issue of this shift, the shift to equity and the shift to making sure that we are service-oriented and that our support system supports your amazing work as parents and support the work of our community. To achieve these priorities, we know we have to invest in education, and we know that our legislators work tirelessly to ensure that those investments are going to our children, our schools, our districts, and our community. Economic recovery for all of our students is essential. We know that our students have gone through, in many situations, through isolation, trauma, and mental health has to be a major component of the academic support systems. We must deliver the kind of instruction that engages our students and reconnects them to the amazing work that we are committed to. So for us, we have two major concerns. As you know, we oppose the transferring of the administration of over $1 billion, exactly $1.3 billion federal program, our child nutrition program, to the Department of Agriculture and Markets. Now, while I always like to create a win-win, we do believe in the program of the Farm to School program, which is approximately about 50 schools that are part of this program. We believe in nutrition. We believe that we have to work cross-agency and with a cross-purpose in mind. But we have to do this in a way that we engage and we support each other and we take the very, very best from all of our agencies. And so while the department supports the idea of continuing to work with ag and markets in terms of nutrition, we do not believe that the transfer of the administration of this program is going to be helpful, but rather in many ways disruptive. The second, of course, is the idea of looking at the issue of the OP, which is our Office of Professions. And that transfer, we too believe, will create the kinds of disruptions in our system. We truly believe that the Department of Health has its role, and we've continued to work with the current commissioner, and we too have our role in terms of quality. So for us, it's a matter of knowing that our cross-agency work has to continue. So in closing, we are also pledging to continue to work tirelessly with the Board of Regents, with the incredible staff at the department, and with all of our legislators and our governor and across agency to making sure that what we are asking for is what we want in order for us to deliver what we know you expect of us in terms of supporting our children, our communities, our schools. And for that, I am grateful to be here with you today to share our best thinking. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Rosa. And I especially want to thank you because I know that you haven't been feeling well. And I know that after resting for the afternoon, you felt that you were up to joining us tonight. We just appreciate your commitment, and we want you to get more rest. So go home, go to sleep and feel better. And again, thank you for joining us and for really always being one of the first to volunteer to join us whenever we have an event. That means a lot. And so thank you for being here. And we'll hope to see you soon in person.
Okay, well, and my other comment is to the A team, just keep doing your A work and move it to A+, okay? I mean, A is great, but I want that A+.
Love it. And on the 100th day, they get a score of 100.
Hey.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you for the opportunity. As always, it's always a pleasure. And I continue to absolutely appreciate the relationship. Thank you.
And you're getting a lot of thank yous in the chat box. So I know that all of our members who've joined in tonight, they really appreciate that you're here. So thank you again. We'll see you soon, and go home and put your pajamas on and go to bed.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Good night, Dr. Rosa.
Good night. Enjoy your time together. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, and now I'm going to introduce Helen Hoffman. She's our first vice president, and she is the designated officer that works with the advocacy team. And she's going to kick off the next part of our program. Helen?
Thank you, Dana. Am I on? Am I?
You're on. You're good to
Great.
go.
Thank you. Thank you, Dana. Good evening, everybody. I'm so honored to introduce our friend, Senator Shelley Mayer, tonight. She is the Senate Education Committee Chair and tireless champ for children. Senator Mayer is the leader in fighting for our children with disabilities, for school aid, for our special act schools, for our English language learners, and for parents and families throughout the state. She is the first to speak up on behalf of PTA on our issues of importance, the first to weigh in with the governor, and the first to call us when an issue arises. She is a mom and a grandmother and the biggest PTA supporter, and we can't thank her enough for her continued support and commitment. I also want to add that at this year's New York State PTA convention, Shelley drove 7 hours each way to Syracuse to speak with our members because it was that important to her. And she is joining us tonight. Senator, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Helen. That was so generous and heartfelt. You know, you can always say that when somebody speaks, with a certain kind of passion, they mean it. And I really heard it. I'm very, very appreciative of how you said that, Helen. It's a tough moment in the school world. I'm going to speak a little bit about that. It takes a certain sort of drive to do the right thing by these kids. And thank you for your leadership of the PTA. Dana, thank you as well. As the commissioner said, you are on your A game. I tell people that the experience of the last few years of the PTA with Kyle up here in Albany, I'm still in Albany, I was supposed to be home, is just a bigger, louder voice for parents. And, let me just say this, because I'm a blunt person. Louder is not always better. Louder is not always righter. But the PTA is loud and thoughtful, is loud and considerate, is loud and recognizes how government works. And I so appreciate that approach of Kyle, your advocacy committee, the people in my district. I saw some of them here who represent the PTA. There is a place for reasonable disagreement. And sometimes right now in the school community, we're seeing voices so loud and really not in a constructive tone. So thank you to the PTA for recognizing that's the better way. And my approach, to dealing with these issues, as Helen mentioned, is to pick up the phone and call the governor's office. I have a wonderful relationship with the governor. I have a wonderful relationship with Dr. Rosa. I value them both. I'm much better to pick up the phone and say, parents are upset about masks. Parents are upset about special ed kids not getting all the services. Parents are upset about not having broadband. Parents are upset about not having food in every school if schools are going to close. Parents are upset that their teachers are upset. All these things. My style is to use my power of my relationships, my good faith, and my word to do my best for students and parents. And so during this whole time of COVID, working with Kyle and the PTA and many others in a very collaborative way, it has been a rocky road. You've all been through this, as rocky as it could be. We do better when we try to work together, find common ground. If we disagree, that's fine. I've been outspoken that parents are growing frustrated with the mask requirement in schools. They want to see a path out that will change that. They really want to have some security that that day is not far off. And I've been conveying that for the past 2 months in my way. I stand by my way. I know some people think it's not enough. My experience is, and I think the PTA experience as well, to be a good faith partner in this government process during the roughest of times when we did not know everything our kids would experience. We did not know who would get sick. We did not know whether kids who were too young to get vaccinated were at risk. There's so much we did not know that we are better off to try to be colleagues, try to make sure our voices are heard and do it in a constructive way. So I just wanted to be very clear about that because there's a need to make sure that people understand the way I and my colleagues stand up for parents' voices. So I also want to jump into a few things about the budget because I'm right now was just on the phone with my staff working on my letter to the leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, about what I want in the education budget. First of all, thank you all, because this foundation aid that we got with your help, and now we're in year 2 of the phase-in and then year 3, and Governor Hochul's committed to it. It is a sea change that we are not arguing about money. You all know that. Every year it was just money, foundation aid, we can't do it, we don't have enough. We're finally not having that as our year 1 fight. And that is a credit to the work you have done. I'm so thankful for your partnership on that. That is a game changer. However, our mental health needs are greater than ever. You may remember prior to COVID, I went around the state and asked people what's #1 issue. The PTA, the superintendents, the boards, and the teachers all said mental health. That was prior to COVID. Now it's so much more challenging. And because it's lasted so long, because students have been in and out of school, things have been disrupted, families have lost loved ones, children have lost family members. We have a lot of trauma that we need to deal with. So the governor has her proposal called RECOVS. It's a good first start. I don't think it's big enough. I don't think it's strong enough. I'd like to see every district get money for mental health and have it be a reimbursable expense as we go forward. Just like transportation, like textbooks, like keeping attendance, all those other things. So mental health, top of mind for me, and I'm going to be fighting for that. 2, continue to expand pre-K, full day pre-K for 4-year-olds. I am totally, with my colleague, devoted. Now, last year we got a lot of additional districts and some of them didn't use it. We got to figure out why it didn't work for them. But that being said, what we need to do is ensure that we're giving the right amount of money, that school districts actually get what they need so they can have a quality full day 4-year-old program. That if they use community-based providers, they're doing so responsibly, and that we just expand it. I always say, if you live on the Bronx side of New York City and I represent the other side, in the Bronx, you're entitled to full day 4-year-old pre-K just by virtue of living in New York City. We want that for every kid, and we're going to fight for that. So we're going to continue to fight for full day pre-K expansion. Charter development outside the city of New York, because the PTA is largely, although you have Queens, I'm very happy to see that, a number of our districts, particularly some of our high need districts, are impacted as the number of charters continues to grow and they draw an increasing percentage of students away from traditional public schools, not against charter, but the way the money flows means that your school is losing a significant amount of money. Albany, Rochester, Buffalo, Yonkers, now Mount Vernon. There are other districts. We have to be thoughtful as the state authorizes, particularly SUNY authorizes additional charters. And Dr. Rose has been an excellent partner with us in trying to be much more thoughtful because it has impact on our traditional public schools that we are trying to support. We want to support teachers in the things that they have asked for and need in order to continue to expand and enhance their skills. They learned how to teach remotely, some of them better than others, but we need to build in that as a permanent thing. And lastly, I so appreciate that digital and tech equity, and particularly my bill, to have absolutely every student in every school have high quality, high capacity broadband, that the PTA stood with me and stands with me still. We're just not far enough along down this path. I mean, doing a broadband study is fine. We know what we don't have. We don't have broadband for our kids. And I'm not talking about a program where you get a little extra money as an offset of the bill. I think everyone should get it for free. This should be the obligation of the providers. I'm going to continue to push it. I didn't do so well last year, but you know, we never give up after a single go round. So last thing, and it's not a PTA issue always, but expanding childcare access. We know as working parents and mothers particularly, and working fathers, childcare is part of the continuum of what an educational system requires. Childcare, pre-K, K through 12, and frankly, higher ed and CTE, these got to be part of the equation. So, you know, while we are happy not to be fighting about foundation aid, we got other things on our bucket. And I will do my very best with my colleagues in my style and my way to fight for parents, to get a path out of masking, which I'm hopeful will occur quite quickly now, and to get back to helping our kids recover from this and helping our parents be such fantastic champions. So it's truly an honor to come before you, my friends. I'm very, always very touched by having my own PTA membership, which I have to renew. But thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your fight. Thank you for remembering what we're fighting for. And thank you for making your voices heard here in Albany in such a powerful way. And you have influenced the conversation in a way that was not always the case. So credit to you all for that. And I think I'll stop there, Helen. I know meals, yes, we are working on meals. Thank you. That is a very significant additional thing on, we want to expand to make sure breakfast is included. We want to have meals for all. We know food is absolutely imperative as part of the school experience. That is in our thing. So I see people, some people are commenting on the mask. I think I gave my perception and the way I'm working on it. I talked to the Lieutenant Governor yesterday. I spoke to the governor 3 days earlier. I'm going to keep my voice heard in the way I do. And I'm very optimistic that among all the other issues we have a bucket load of issues to get back to moving our schools along. So thank you for the opportunity to come by, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Senator Mayer, for joining us tonight. I'm so excited that you brought up the digital and equity, tech equities, because in a little while, we're going to be talking about our ask for PTA this year on our PTA issues. And one of them is supporting the legislation that you have put together. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. And I also want to say that I really look forward to our continuous relationship while we advocate for kids, because you are a true advocate for kids, and you really have worked tirelessly to put kids first. And that is so important to us. So thank you so much for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. You're muted, unfortunately.
I just want to add one thing. You know,
Sure.
I've been here in Albany a long time in various capacities, and the last 10 years an elected official, always on the Education Committee in the Assembly and the Senate. And there are a number of people here, and I always say, you know, you should have learned in the PTA, because the PTA is a fantastic place to learn how to work collectively and get things done with people who don't agree with you all the time, but you have a goal that's bigger than yourself. It's not only about you in the PTA. And so I always encourage people, start at the PTA, learn, that's the real hard politics. And you can make things happen, but it's bigger than me and not only my kid. It is a big collective experience that teaches you skills that I've tried to bring with me here. So thank you to the PTA for for helping me along that path.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that, and again, like I said, we are true partners. I enjoy, it's so sad that we can't come and visit you in person anymore, because I really used to enjoy coming into your office and listen and having you listen to us. I mean, it was such a great experience. There it is.
So Shelley, Senator Mayer, I'm going to just pop right in real fast. Nobody's expecting me to pop in, but I am, because you mentioned that you have to renew your membership. So just a little commercial. Tomorrow is our New York State PTA membership jubilee, and it's Founders Day. So tomorrow is the perfect day. We're looking for as many new members as we can get tomorrow.
All
so
right.
Put that on your agenda tomorrow, and we'll be excited if you are able to renew your membership.
Thank you, Dana. You're doing your job very well.
I'm trying. Always great to see you. And now I'm popping back off.
Okay. Thank you so much, all. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to transition to the fantastic video of our student award winner. Please stand by.
Good evening. It is my honor to present this year's Suzanne Smoller Commitment to Advocacy Youth Award. Vice President Suzanne Smoller was not only my PTA colleague, but she was my friend. Suzanne was a true advocate for children taken from us too soon. She was a dedicated PTA leader, amazing mom and wife, and a true advocate. Suzanne served as New York State Vice President for Advocacy, held many regional and local PTA positions, and received many accolades and awards for her commitment to PTA and her community, and her tireless work in the substance use field. Suzanne lived by the quote, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." To continue her legacy and life's work, New York State PTA Board of Directors in November 2019 developed a new advocacy award, the Suzanne Smoller Commitment to Advocacy Youth Award. This prestigious award is given annually to one high school senior to encourage them to pursue post-secondary education or training, and to continue their active engagement in advocacy in the areas of HIV/AIDS, the LGBTQ+ community, mental health, social justice, or substance use. I'm so pleased to announce this year's award recipient, Sydney Walden, who is joining us today. I would like to share a bit about Sydney. Sydney is a leader in her school's STARS program, and STARS stands for Students Teaching Aid Reduction Strategy. She works to educate students in grades K through 10 on advocacy and reliance skills, and teaches fellow students on everything from hygiene skills for young students, mental health for middle schoolers, and HIV/AIDS prevention for high schoolers. It offers that by teaching lessons about HIV/AIDS, influencing positive health decisions, and how to advocate. Her teacher offered that Sydney was accepted to STARS program for her leadership skills and passion for promoting overall wellness to others. She is a valued and respected member of the STARS program and takes on extra leadership roles as a group leader. She communicates well with her classmates, is respectful of others' opinions, and isn't afraid to speak up for her own convictions. All incredible traits. Sydney plans to go to college for public relations and is also a dancer and a musician. Talk about well-rounded. Suzanne would be so proud of you, Sydney, and so are we. It is my honor to present the 2021-2022 Suzanne Smoller Commitment to Advocacy Youth Award to Sydney Waldner from Monroe Woodbury PTA in Central Hudson. Congratulations, Sydney. Sydney, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you so much, Helen. I'm so grateful that the entire New York State PTA staff decided to pick me to be the recipient for this award this year. And I just, hope as I go on to college, I continue to advocate for mental health and use my knowledge of HIV and AIDS awareness for the people in my new community at college as I continue to still do that in my community here. I'm so lucky that, there's a program at my school like STARS that I'm able to be a part of. And, I've learned so many things that I don't think I would have if I wasn't a part of this program. And even growing up watching the older students that had been in this program before I was a STARS student myself, it was just so nice I always knew it was something I wanted to do when I became a high school student myself. And so in my sophomore year, I applied, and I was lucky that I've been able to do it for the past 3 years. Our director, Miss Wright, is absolutely amazing. And I'm so grateful that I've had this opportunity to, be a part of that program and then have this award awarded to me because of that. So I thank you guys just so much. And yeah.
Have you decided what college you're going to next year?
I have not. I am waiting to, see what I get. I've gotten into all my colleges that I've applied to. I'm leaning very much towards my top two, which are University of South Carolina or University of Colorado out in Boulder. I have not decided between the two yet, but I should be deciding in the next couple of weeks. It all depends on scholarships, and I'm hoping to dance in college as well. So I'm waiting to see what happens with all of that, and I'll make my decision from there.
Well, I'm so excited for you, and so is the whole New York State PTA. And we wish you so much, we wish you well in the upcoming year as you get ready for graduation and then, get ready to start college. So again, Sydney, I'm so happy that we're able to present this to you today, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We are going to transition quickly to our next presentation. So just give me 1 second. The next presentation, we pre-taped today with the governor's office. So we're really excited about that. Dan Fuller is going to join us. And I know a few of you have asked about masking. So you can view all of our current COVID positions on our website. If you go to nyspta.org, in the top left corner, you can hit COVID-19. We actually have a dedicated webpage about our COVID positions. And we will talk briefly with Dan about, what we're looking forward. If you are a unit leader, you've already received this information as well. We have, again, all of this information on our website. We're happy to answer those in the chat box as we move forward. But we're going to switch over to that conversation with Dan. Just give me 1 second.
Good evening, New York State PTA. I am your Executive Director, Kyle Belakavitsky. I am so thrilled to be joined this evening on behalf of our President, Dana Platon, by Dan Fuller. Dan is the Deputy Secretary for Education for Governor Kathy Hochul. Dan, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Kyle. It is good to be here. And thank you, Dana, for extending this invitation as well. Though I know she's not with us right now, but I appreciate all that you folks are doing. And it's great to be here and continue our conversation from, I think, November, right?
Yes. And I appreciate it. Dan, for those of you that were in person with us in Syracuse, Dan drove all the way out on a Sunday morning, leaving his family, and he was a proud card-carrying PTA member. He showed it to us at convention, so we were excited for that. Dan's wife is also a fantastic educator, so we're always thankful for everything that Dan and his family does for education. Dan has been a longtime governor and worked under former Governor Cuomo and has been a really good friend of PTA. And Dan, we may not always agree, we always say that, but we always appreciate the fact that you in your position, and especially with Governor Hochul and former Governor Cuomo, really have always solicited our opinion. You are literally on speed dial, which is so great. And I know you answer our emails, you return our calls, even on the weekends, even in the middle of the night. And I know Dana, our governance team, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, and look, thank you, folks. I know I always say it, but even, and you alluded to it, even when we don't agree, we can still work together, which is so important because there are so many issues that you folks work on, so many issues that we work on. And particularly with Governor Hochul, her MO, and she's been very clear, is collaborate, talk to people, work stuff out, but the where you can, let's defer to the locals because she comes from a local government background.
Yeah.
And she has been, and I think a lot of folks have seen it, very driven on making sure we're collaborating and talking to folks. So
I tell you, it's been refreshing. And thank you to her for that constant reach out. We've had a number of in-person meetings with her, one as recent as last week, where our president, Dana Platon, represented the association so well. And I think we had dozens and dozens of members of our governance team on with the governor for an hour where we talked COVID. We're going to get to COVID to everybody watching at home this evening. But where we talked COVID and we talked masks and we talk the things that parents and families really want to, and we appreciate her having that conversation. She has reached out, you have reached out, your fantastic team, Mike and Terry have reached out, your health team has reached out on really everything education. We're very appreciative of the budget that she's put forward. I laugh, this is my 24th session, and it's probably the first session where we really haven't had to oppose a whole lot. So it was kind of welcoming, Dan, I have to say.
These are interesting times, but advocates have to advocate too. So there's a lot of good in this budget. I think one of the best budgets I've certainly seen in my brief tenure here. And really, it is truly, again, focused on what is best for kids. The governor has done things like directing the nicer suit to be settled, to take things out that have been in the back. In previous years, it's been a lot of noise. It's been a lot of conflict and friction. And she has said, let's solve this. Let's take money out of the equation in this instance. So,
which is great. So let's do that. Let's dig into the budget a little bit. And then we're going to talk a few COVID things. So there's some really good things in this budget. So I want you to talk school aid and mental health and broadband and some of the good things that are in there. I'm going to turn things over to you.
Yep. So I think there are a couple of things. One, as I've talked about, this budget recommends a $2.1 billion increase, which is over 7%. It is a record total education funding level of $31.3 billion. And all districts will receive a foundation aid increase as part of what we're doing. One of the biggest pieces around this, as I said, though, was the previous conflicts over foundation aid and adequate funding. The governor has said, let's settle this suit. Let's pay the money. She's committed to do it. We're in year 2. She put it in the budget, and let's move forward. And to put it in perspective, New York State is the average per pupil expenditure right now is more than or nearly 2 times the national average. More education funding in New York State is more than any other country in the world. New York State education funding per pupil is more than any country in the world. So we are providing a significant amount of education funding. That's dollars and cents. So, and it's important because money does matter, but money is not the sole answer here. I think a couple of other things that are in the governor's budget that I think are really strong this year is $100 million in grants for schools to address one of 2 things: mental health or academic supports, or both. What we hear time and time again from COVID, particularly in the highest poverty areas, is they suffered the most. They have the greatest challenges. So we have seen it and we're seeing it across state in all zip codes and all socioeconomic backgrounds. But what we really want to do is focus on helping those kids who need it most, This $100 million in grants will go for providing schools with mental health supports, mental health access, access to mental health personnel, mental health program, mental health training, counselors, personnel, other things. And there's also the other part of this is what do we need to do for making up for the remote learning, for academic deficits that many kids have encountered. So there is money as part of this grant for extended school day, extended school year, tutoring before school, after school. And again, it speaks to the governor's focus on local decision-making too, because these are local options that schools can choose how they want to apply for the grant, what they want to pay for with the grant, and what they want to use it for. And then we are also requiring, because we know that schools received a great deal of money from the federal government, that schools do provide some money as well. So they have additional skin in the game, so to speak. But the important thing is we want to help support schools as they address these incredible mental health challenges and the academic challenges that for many kids, not being in school or being remote led to deficits in learning that we need to make up, and we need to make up over the next few years. There are a couple other pieces in the budget that I think are really, really strong. Just facing schools are teacher shortages and a looming teacher shortage. By some estimates, we could be losing large numbers of teachers who are over 50 right now, and they could be retiring in the next few years. So what the governor has done is she looked at ways that we can try to build up our teaching supply. And so one of the things she did is we have an income limit of $35,000 for retirees that are going to come back and go to work in the public sector again. We are going to raise that or waive that to try and get former teachers back in the classroom, try and get former counselors back, and other school support staff. We're also looking at ways we can accelerate the teacher certification process. So teachers, in a lot of occupations, professions, you come in from out of state. You get if you need a license, you get a provisional license of sorts to begin practicing while the state education department catches up on the paperwork needed to issue the official license or certification. We're saying do the same thing for teachers. When a teacher comes out of the School of Education, while they're getting the paperwork and items filled out, they should be free to start teaching. Let's move and scale. We're also funding new cohorts of our master teacher program. These are teachers who get a stipend to work with other teachers around the state to develop effective practices, ideas, and trainings and support for other teachers in their field. So this year, we're going to focus on career and technical education teachers to work together as a master teacher cohort across the state. And then also looking at guidance counselors. And we're putting a priority on diversity. So we want to expand diversity if we can. One of the last things on the teacher front too that I think is another strong program is we have so many paraprofessionals and teaching assistants. And they are doing this because they like it, because they want to be in that environment. So we're going to create scholarships for those young people to be able to pursue their teaching degree. They can go part-time, and while they're teaching, and they will get a scholarship to pursue their education. So those are a couple of the big pieces. I'm just trying to see. We also have a competitive grant of $2 million for positive learning climate. Schools across the state are seeing challenges with discipline issues, with school climate issues. So what we're trying to do is we've created a program that schools, particularly schools that have high discipline issues, are eligible to receive a grant that will help with professional development and counseling and provide resources to help improve overall school climate. So those are a couple of the big issues. The digital equity, again, the governor has been hyper focused on, and one of the things we learned in the pandemic is that not all internet access is equal. And a cell phone is not an appropriate device to learn on. And that there are parts of the state that need access to broadband. So the governor has made it clear that she is going to try and get broadband everywhere and try to support learning in those environments and make sure that they have not only the appropriate internet access, but then are there devices or things that schools will need. I'm just trying to think. One other piece is the Clean Green Schools. And these are grants authorized with NYSERDA to work with, it provides capital for school buildings to do energy efficiency projects. And that'll be run through Building Aid through NYSERDA too. So more to come on that, but it's a great opportunity for schools that particularly are going to undertake a capital project. There could be some incentives and support to essentially go from, not the traditional, but what is the next generation? What is clean and green? How can we make our schools more environmentally efficient and ultimately reduce our reliance on fossil fuels going down the road? So I think those are some of the big things. I know I've probably run through them pretty quickly, but
that's fantastic. Listen, and like I said, yes, we testified in support of all of those wonderful things. We were really, exceptionally happy when she basically ended the lawsuit, right? So we've been fighting for school aid, as you know, for a very, very long time here in New York State. And Michael Rebell has worked very hard, and many advocates have worked very hard on that. And previous administration did not really view that as a legitimate issue. And we're very glad Governor Hochul came in, immediately said that school aid will be addressed and is fully funding foundation aid. It is the biggest win in my 24-year legislative career I have ever seen in Albany. And we really, really need to thank her for that. It is astounding, and we'll get our students, no matter their zip code, no matter their race, ethnicity, no matter their sexual orientation, gender identity, no matter, get them the resources that they need to succeed in our New York State schools. It's a big thank you for us. Have a focus on mental health. We're always looking for more obvious mental health support for our students. So while we surely appreciate that $100 million, we're going to be asking you for a little bit more. So that's coming down the pike. But we do appreciate that Recover Schools Fund. It's really great funding. We're hoping that again that can be eligible to all school districts. All 730 and change school districts. And so we, like I said, the budget was really great, and we're really looking forward to continuing to partner with her in supporting our students. Her and I. Now the hard question. Are you ready?
Okay.
So drum roll.
Can't even imagine.
I know we are all waiting for it. Let's talk about COVID. So we do appreciate the governor's thoughtful approach to COVID. You and I think have talked probably every day for the past 2 years on COVID. It's one of the first things I do in the morning is I look at the COVID numbers report that you guys send out, which is very helpful to many of the education stakeholders. We look at those numbers daily. We've been very appreciative of all of the extra supports that the state has given us, all of the extra supports that the federal government has given schools. The Test to Stay program is helping. The tests that you guys have been providing schools has really been helpful. Millions and millions of at-home tests are going home to families, and we really appreciate that. But let's talk about masks, right? So let's talk a little bit about what we're doing with our tests, because that's important too, because again, that was a pretty big feat to get literally 20 million tests to parents. And then we need to talk about masks and where we're going with that. So let's dig in on that one, put you on the hot seat, Dan.
All right. Well, let me back up to the test first, because that is, as you said, it was a great accomplishment. And again, the governor was very clear and very direct in that we need to get these tests to schools. We need to get these tests to kids and to parents and to families to do it. We were seeing numbers rising in Omicron, and one of the best defenses that we had was testing. And there were national shortages, it felt like, particularly as you got closer to the holidays, on testing. And yet the governor, because through her vision and her ability to direct us and to commit us to get tests, we were able to get tests. And to this date now, we are still providing deliveries every week to schools, public and private, of tests so that kids can take tests, that they can do test to stay, which is vitally important. Test to stay is just, it's a way of helping kids stay in school, which was always the goal. You know, we all want kids in school. We know that the remote learning did not work well. One of the key ways to keep kids in school are the mitigation strategies. Central to that is masking. Now, we have hit a point, and I think, you know, you hear it every day in the news. You see the parents and the others who want to end masking in schools. New Jersey came out and said they're going to do it. Connecticut came out and said they're going to do it. They picked dates on a calendar. The governor has been very clear here. She wants to look at a number of items. She wants to look at a number of metrics before we decide, and if we decide to remove masks. So I know that there's been a lot of people saying we need an off-ramp, we need a number or a threshold or a date. And the governor
And I feel bad because we keep saying that too.
Oh yeah, we get letters on it. And the governor even yesterday was asked about it again. And I think, as she has always maintained, there's not one number because you're looking at a number of variables, right? You're looking at the number of positive cases. You're looking at where hospitalization is. You're looking at vaccination rates, particularly among different categories of people. You know, in early January, I think we had a 7-day positivity of like 20%. So there were times leading up to January where people were saying we should get rid of masks, numbers are low. But then Omicron came and we had 20% positivity in early January. Imagine if we didn't have masks, what that would have looked like. So what she has said is that she is going to work and look at the numbers as we get closer to the time. She did say that kids are going home for winter break. We don't know where they're going to go. Are folks going to travel? I suspect there's going to be more travel than there has been. We made sure that kids have tests before they go so they can test when they come back. And then when they come back, we'd like to see more testing too in that week after the February break. Recognizing that different schools have different breaks, but it's generally around the end of February. And then she was going to, again, look at those metrics and look at where we are at that point, which will be late February, early March. And then also, you know, see what global trends are out there. She's talking to a lot of medical professionals. She's talking to a lot of experts. We have great people at Department of Health closely monitoring this. And what she's going to do is look at the numbers and then we'll make a decision based on that. But when you set up a number, as she's pointed out, what if you never get to that number, right? Is 2% the right number? What if we never get to 2%, but we get to 2.5%?
Yeah, that's great to hear. You know, I think that was the topic of our meeting with her last week, was really this. And it was nice that she brought all the stakeholders together to say, listen, I want your positions. And Dana, you know, discussed our, you know, general COVID positions. It's always been on our website. You can go to nyspta.org, top left corner, it says COVID-19, you know, where we really have always been looking for parental choice in masking when it's safe to do so. And, you know, we think the time is now. So we're looking too for that, you know, those data and those numbers after break for sure. Because we all miss our children's faces, right? We all miss their smiling faces. So we're anxious for that decision too. I think for our members who may be watching this, know that, you know, at least the next conversation on this issue from the state is going to be after that February break, you know, that early to mid-March. So it's kind of a sit tight and wait right now. You know, have those conversations with your parents and families, maybe have that conversation with your principal or superintendent on what happens if if the state does decide to go mask optional at that point. And know that your school board and your superintendent has absolutely no control over that. So that's also important to remember. So it's always nice to advocate. We always want to advocate as PTA, but your school board cannot make that decision, and your superintendent cannot make that decision. Right now, according to the court, the only person that can make that decision is the governor and the Department of Health.
Right, and we have, you know, right now is a requirement for schools in the state. And that, you know, the governor has said she will revisit it based on the science and the data, and is doing it in a manner that we will see where we are in late February, early March with those numbers, and hopefully there are no more variants and there are other
Fingers crossed.
pieces. That then we can figure out the best way to do it, if that's what the numbers say. And then, there will be some additional guidance, because you are going to have, you've got to create this. There are going to be folks who still want to wear masks. You see it every day now. People feel comfortable, and that's their choice, and they should be able to. So we want to make sure that happens. And schools, have all asked for time to be aware, and I think that was part of the governor's message too. And during our meeting,
Absolutely, that schools have to be able to prepare.
Right. Schools want to be ready and need to have some time to do it, and so we're going to keep doing the outreach over the next week too, as things are coming together. And look, we know folks want to get rid of masks. I don't think anybody wants to keep masks, but the governor has been very clear. Let's do it in a safe manner that's focused on what is best for the kids.
It's also important, Dan, and I know as a parent, that we have to make sure that all children are supported, because you don't know the family circumstances or circumstance of a child. That if the state and when the state decides to go mask optional, it is certainly appropriate that some children may feel comfortable continuing to wear a mask, and that's okay. They may be wearing a mask to protect a loved one at home, and it's very important that that child is supported and they're not bullied for that decision. And the student that is unmasked is not bullied for that decision. So, having those conversations with our children, I think, is going to be really important during that time, and doing the things like making sure we're maximizing distancing and hand washing and, all of those other important things that are going to keep our kids safe.
Yep. And a lot of those mitigation strategies, and I'm sure you'll remember back in early September, well, when we met in August, before the governor was the governor, she met with education stakeholders. You were there, Dana was there, and talked about the need, and we're going to put some guidance together, and we're going to put this guidance out. And it was all those steps to make sure we have kids in school. She's always been very clear, kids need to be in school. What are the steps we can take to have kids in school? And it's, different times people have been have complained about a lot of things, particularly masks right now. But it's our kids are in school, our schools are open, and that's where they should be.
And we should be proud of that. And like I said, while we may not always agree, and that's okay, we agree more often than not. And that's what's important. And we always appreciate the conversation. Dan, thanks so much. On behalf of our president, Dana Plain, all of our governance team, and the parents and families of our 2.6 million public school children, thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, and thank you again for having me, and I look forward to the continued conversation with you folks.
Always. We'll talk soon, Dan. Have a great night.
Okay, bye-bye.
So Kathleen, would you like to get us started for this evening?
Sure, thank you very much. I apologize, I was just enjoying a
Thanks so
cup of
much,
tea as well. I don't know why
everybody.
I'm freezing today. It's supposed to be warmer, but why am I so?
And I think someone is unmuted, so we want to just make sure everyone mutes their lines. And that would be fantastic. Thank you so much. And I'm really excited to introduce our next panel. So we're going to dig into a little bit about schools, and I'm going to ask Dr. Yodice and Amy Heisek and Megan Zaharki to come on and join me. And we're so excited. Amy says Carol Raymond, but that's actually Amy Heisek. So I'm so excited to have everybody here, and I'm going to do quick bios, and we're going to kind of jump into a little panel conversation. Dr. Yodice is, and I'm very lucky because Dr. Yodice is my fantastic superintendent at my school district. And when we were kind of reflecting on what we wanted to accomplish in this panel, we really wanted to focus on different areas of the state and different types of school districts. So Dr. Yodice is from a reasonably rural school district that is very small. It's a K-8 school district, one of only 11 in the state that are K-8 with no high school. So Dr. Yodice, thanks for joining us tonight. She was previously the principal at the Wannon School District, received her doctorate, and now is the superintendent of a K-8 school district with about 340 students with no high school in rural Rensselaer County. So Mary, I call her Mary. I'm going to call you Mary. Mary, thanks for joining us. I appreciate that. Joining us, not Carol Raymond, but Amy Heisek, is from the North Cicero high school in the Syracuse area. Amy is our 2017 Teacher of the Year. She is a high school teacher, science teacher, and also on our PTA Board of Directors. So it really brings us an interesting perspective as both PTA and a high school educator and teacher. Amy, thanks for joining us. And our own Megan. Megan is from Long Island, from the Oceanside School District. So again, a different type of school district, small, rural, middle of the state, and then Long Island. Megan is a music educator and an orchestra teacher. And so we're so excited that Megan is here again, bringing us that teacher and parent perspective, and both a parent of a student with disability. So we're really excited to really have everybody join us today. We're going to jump right in and kind of talk probably till about 7:30 with our three panelists. Mary, I'm going to toss the first question to you. I hope you don't mind that. And I really want to see from a superintendent's perspective, really running a school district. I think what has been the biggest challenge for you as a school leader, this school year, last school year, that you had to face in, school safety and mental health, and at the same time, learning for all of our students?
Thanks, Kyle, and thanks for having me here. And thank you, everybody. I think there has been so many challenges. This is a loaded question for sure. I think one of the biggest challenges for us is really adhering to the guidance that placed so many restrictions on the teachers and the staff. We were fortunate enough to be in a small school where we were able to have in-person learning last year for 180 days when many of the school districts were on a rotation of one day in, one day out. We are small enough that we could utilize the space and be 6 feet apart. So that was great to have the in-person learning, but boy, those restrictions of that physical distancing has been very difficult to manage, and it's had really a negative impact on our instruction. And it truly restricts the way that teachers are teaching in the classroom. And I think that was a big hurdle, and still is. It's very challenging. For example, we use guided reading groups as a large part of our elementary ELA block instruction, where you're taking, a teacher takes, 2 or 3 students, up to 6 students, and reads and whisper reads with the children. We're not able to do that. The restrictions that teachers should always remain 6 feet apart. So that was a really powerful tool that was a part of our instruction, our core instruction every day. And so unfortunately, that's forced us to do that kind of stand to deliver from the front of the class and do that one size fits all, which we worked years to get away from. The restrictions really had so many implications that we really weren't seeing until we thought we'd do it for a little while. Now it's year 2 of this kind of stand to deliver. And are we differentiating it enough? And are we able to, enrich and to provide the AIS services and those small groups? So
and Mary, I'm going to interrupt you. Tell me what AIS is.
Academic intervention services. So if a child is not getting their whole group instruction, the teacher pulls them to the back table and works, or someone pushes in and pulls, a few students. Last year, it was very difficult to provide those services because, we only have a couple of those AIS teachers, and we were pulling from separate rooms. Last year, we kept kids in pods. So it really was impossible to pull 2 third graders from 2 different rooms to come in. So I think we watered down some services that, kids didn't get what they normally got. This year, again, it's just more difficult to have those one-on-one. Small group instruction. Again, the kids, though the guidance has said that you could go 3 feet, the teachers were still supposed to stay 6 feet from the children. So that was a huge restriction. So I think we're seeing some of those pieces that we're struggling with, that if you did it for a little while, and now it's year 2, I can't imagine that we can keep going into dealing with those negative impacts of just, again, the way we instruct, the social emotional impact. Having desks in the cafeteria so kids are sitting 6 feet apart at a desk is very challenging. How do we pivot away from that? So again, you had to keep safety first. You had to do these things, especially last year, not knowing. We were, again, one of the first schools that were in school every day. We weren't sure what was happening. It's just been a challenge, restricting parents, restricting visitors, volunteers. We're running, we're safely running, but this all has a very negative impact on the social and emotional well-being of our students. Plus, again, the instructional pieces, those implications that we really weren't even thinking about would negatively affect how our teachers, and especially bringing new teachers in, that's not the way we'd like to say that's best practice. And we were kind of forced to do that. So lots of challenges.
You hit on so many points, especially from a school leader. One thing that we see as a statewide association and working with school leaders is you really have no choice in following those rules. So, and I know it's very frustrating for school leaders. I speak with the School Boards Association, the Superintendents Association a lot, and whether or not you agree with those rules that SED or CDC puts out, you don't have a choice. I think it's sometimes challenging. I see you shaking your head, so I'll leave it at that. I want to ask Megan. Megan, I know, music instruction and arts instruction really took a toll during the pandemic. Talk to me about what that looked like in your school district, last year, and is music instruction, coming back this year for students, and what does that look like, Megan?
Absolutely. Thank you. Last year, not just only in my school district, but I can definitely speak for music educators statewide. It absolutely looked different. We had to abide by the spacing rules. Luckily, as an orchestra teacher, the kids could keep their masks on while playing string instruments. So we just had to abide by the spacing rules and keep masks on. Band and chorus instructors, as well as general music instructors, faced a lot more challenges because of masking, because of distancing. A lot of districts could not do in-person concerts. We were doing a lot of virtual concerts, a lot of virtual instruction, which may translate well for the Core 4 and foreign language. Doesn't always translate as well for music and the arts, which rely upon the whole group participating together. I can say that this year it's looking a lot better.
That's great to hear.
In-person concert in 2 years in December 2021, which was amazing. NISMA solo festivals are coming back in person as well. I'm also a NISMA string adjudicator, all state certified. I was doing a lot of adjudicating from my dining room and just getting that glimpse of the statewide picture. The advantage of that was that it allowed me from my living room in Long Island to see what music education truly looks like in Buffalo, in the North Country, in the Albany area. And it really gave a picture of the inequities throughout the state. So obviously, as a music educator, one of my huge advocacy points is equity in music and the arts for all. And I'm really happy to see that slowly but surely, music and the arts are coming back stronger than ever because the kids need them now more than ever.
Yeah, and I think that's fantastic. We're going to talk a little bit with Dr. Yotis about social emotional learning in a minute. And I want to go to Amy next. Amy, let's talk about high school students and remote instruction and what that looks like. And, as a high school science teacher, especially challenging, obviously, with lab work during remote instruction. What did that time look like for you and your students? Were there positive lessons that we can glean moving forward from that time?
There were. The remote instruction we know didn't work for everyone, but there were students that it really did work well for. I have students, especially at the high school level, who have mental health challenges. And some of those mental health challenges are anxiety and depression issues that cause them to be very anxious in the school building. The building that I teach in is a 10-12 building with almost 2,000 students in it. So it's a really big building. So for some of my kiddos, they were really anxious being in a building that big. They actually thrived on the remote instruction. Definitely was difficult as a science teacher to do labs, but there really were some good parts. As a biology teacher, there are some things that you can't quite see if you try to do them. I can't manipulate the parts inside a cell in real life, but there are some amazing simulations and amazing online tools that allowed us to be able to harness that technology, to be able to show our kids what happens in a chemical reaction and what happens in a part of a cell that we couldn't do in real life. And so having access to some of those tools that we didn't before, having access to some of those and finding some of those technology tools in that sometimes frantic search of, holy cow, I need to teach parts of cells, but I can't do it on a microscope. And so how do I do this with my kids? we formed networks with each other as teachers. We formed relationships with other teachers in other parts of the state to say, I mean, Facebook groups popped up all over the place to say, okay, I need something for this. I need an idea for this. Please help me do this. Help me teach this. How do I shift this to remote learning? And so all of the relationships that were built out of that, not only for students, but for teachers, those are some really big positive points. It was not an easy transition for a lot of kids. And some of them, I think, haven't really come all the way back. It was very easy to disengage, especially at a high school level when 98% of the students have cell phones. It's very easy to turn your camera off, to turn your mic off and say, oh yeah, I'm paying attention to school, but really I'm having a conversation with my friends on my phone, or I'm Snapchatting, or I'm playing a game, and so now they've actually brought those habits back into the classroom with them. And so there's a lot more disengagement, even though we are back in person. And so that's a battle that I kind of constantly fight is, no, you can't really multitask as much as you think that you can, and trying to help students realize you're splitting your attention and it's really causing an issue with your learning. Those are some things and some challenges I know that I'm seeing.
And I think those are great challenges. And let's talk a little bit on how to work with parents. And Dr. Yotis, I know you are a PTA school, and very strong PTA, that I am a part of. So I'm very proud of that work. And I know you work exceptionally well with your PTA. How do you think that relationship with your PTA worked for you during COVID? And what are some things that you did with, now with families that you might want to keep, moving forward, post as we move from a pandemic to an epidemic, I guess?
Yeah, I think the PTA has been crucial. Unfortunately, it's through Google Meets and interactions on phone calls and conversations like that. But how do we work hard to provide some of the activities or some of the pieces that the kids were not going to have? So like one thing is that we were limiting, restricting food coming in from outside or anything coming in from outside that, we were providing, but, the Valentine's Day parties and the Halloween and all of those things. So we've been really working with the PTA to say, okay, what kind of funds do you need to provide, a snack or, a treat for the students so they still feel that sense of celebration when we can. But with all these restrictions, that was very difficult. So I think really thinking outside the box, thinking of, what kind of things PTA could do outside of things, having kids, send cards to the nursing home. We just did for Valentine's Day, having treats come in from the PTA. So just thinking about what we can do. Our PTA was gracious enough and just gave us so much money to put towards the playground, outdoor seating. So hopefully, we can have families come up, even on the weekends, but for different events and try to do more of that celebration outside. So again, we're just thinking about, how can we build that partnership? The PTA supported a lot of field trips for our kids. Last year were no field trips, and this year we really tried to be creative to think of how could the PTA support these kids getting outside and doing something before the weather got too cold. So we looked at things for emotional support, for team building. The entire middle school went ziplining, which I was absolutely opposed to because I was a nervous wreck, but they wanted to do some sort of social, emotional team building. And so PTA supported that. So that was really great. As far as your the part 2 question about, what did we do for families that we'd like to keep? One thing I am proud that we worked really hard here, and when we were first going out remote and it caught us by surprise, we knew that we needed a lot of work in that area. So we are a 1-to-1 laptop school as of this year. Last year we bought enough so that everyone pre-K through 8 has their own computer. When we have to go remote, or there was so many kids that were in and out of remote through the quarantines that we worked hard to use Google Classroom and to keep our families. I think we've included our families more in our instruction than we ever have before with how to get on with the Google Classroom, the assignments, because unfortunately, for all you parents out there, you were the teacher on a dime. One day you were working and the next day you're home with your child which could have been up to 14 days of a quarantine when we first were quarantining. It's much less than that now, but parents really had to be sitting, whether you're, being that at-home teacher for a kindergartner or an eighth grader. And so I think that's one thing that I'd like to see continue, is that we keep parents so involved with Google Classroom and understanding the curriculum and the materials that we're using, so that they can, because sometimes your middle schooler may never come home and tell you anything about school besides what they had for lunch. So I think those connections we were making with families is much stronger.
And I think that's fantastic. One thing we talk about at PTA is really family engagement, right? Family engagement, I always laugh, is not family involvement, right? Family involvement is like speed dating. You go in quick, you get out quick, you say hello, you say goodbye. Family engagement is like a marriage. You are stuck with each other for as long as you will put up with each other, right? So it's really that meaningful partnership. And we have a lot on our website about the difference between meaningful family engagement, which is really that interlocking relationship that you have between school leaders and teachers, school-related professionals, school board members, who are fantastic supporters of our students as well. So it's really great to hear that. Amy and Megan, I want to talk a little bit about mental health of students, right? So something that we know PTA is really pushing on, we know our school leaders are pushing on. Where do we go to now? So is mental health still an issue in your school buildings? And it's not just our students, it's of our staff, right? So let's not forget that. So we're talking, I see Mary shaking her head to Dr. Yotis. We're talking about the mental health and social emotional learning of our students and the mental health of our staff. Amy, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, both have taken a pretty big hit in the last couple of years. I'm going to be honest. This is my 18th year in the classroom, and it is in many ways the hardest that I have spent in the classroom, mentally and emotionally. And we are all kind of spent, just the way that the parents are with their kids at home. We are, a lot of us parents ourselves, and so it's the parent pressures that we have to deal with our own children and our own families, and then we have all of the students and trying to take care of the student needs of all of the students in our classroom. And I don't know any teacher who got into this job for the paycheck and the summers off. We got into this job because we care about kids. And so we are exhausted. So mental health of staff has taken a really big hit. On the other side of that too, for the student perspective, we did have, Dan Fuller talked about it. We did have mental health issues before COVID. They are worse now. They are more pronounced, and there is more need and not enough support. We had that before COVID. Now the need is greater. And so therefore the support that we can offer students is now less because the need is greater. So we had the same amount of support that we had, but now we have more need. So proportionally, it is not enough. It is absolutely not enough. We have kids that are dealing with anxiety from COVID and worried about family members, and dealing with grief from losing family members to COVID, and being, scared that they will bring it home to their family members from being at school. Like, there's a lot that kids are dealing with, not just the day-to-day pressures of regular school.
Yeah, and I think that's, something that we're all seeing. I know many of you know my personal story. Of course, I've talked about that a number of times in my family on this issue. But I think we're going to continue to see that, moving forward with our students and our staff, right? Because our staff needs support. This has been a very, very long few years. Megan, are you seeing that down in Oceanside?
Oh, 110%. I am currently mentoring a brand new teacher in my district, and it's tough enough to be a first-year teacher. It is such a challenge to be a first-year teacher throughout all of this. It's my 19th year in the classroom, 17 of that spent in elementary orchestra, and the past 2 spent in middle school. And it's just been very tough to help her manage the demands, on top of all of our mental health needs as well. Kids are struggling. Kids that would normally go all out to do everything just don't have it in the tank. They don't. It's manifesting itself in the hallways, outside of school, on social media. And I have to give credit where credit is due. I have a wonderful administration in my building at Oceanside Middle School, and guidance staff and psychologists who really take the issue head on and are really being proactive about it. But still, at the end of the day, there are only like 5 or 6 people trying to help 800 plus kids, 7th and 8th graders in one building. manage all of this, and on top of our own mental health struggles. I always say that whenever I see a PDP, professional development program, where it is self-care, that is a yoga class, we need so much more than that, because if the staff is not mentally healthy, how can we expect that our kids will be mentally healthy? I 100% am seeing this on a day-to-day basis. It's such a struggle, not just in the classroom, but also in my own home with my second grader and my kindergartner, more so my second grader, who is really struggling with his mental health right now.
Yeah, and I hear, and and I think that's why in our next session, some of our fantastic governance team members are going to talk about really how we can really support mental health. Okay, last question. I can't believe this has gone so by. I want you to each think about this and answer. Moving forward, we are a membership organization with advocacy as our principal mission, right? What are something that we can, we are 200,000 voices strong. We have a number of advocates on tonight. What is something that we as PTI really need to advocate on moving forward for our students? If you had to pick the one or two top things that you could say as a school leader, as a teacher, what do we need to, as a parent, what do we need to really advocate on, moving forward the next few months, the next school year? What does that look like? Dr. Yodice?
I would say one of the big things is a collaboration amongst educators to promote social emotional learning, mental health supports, as the senator talked about, funding for these pieces. We used some of our COVID money last year to bring on a social worker 2 days a week, and only have enough for 2 years. Like, what's going to happen next year? She is so necessary and needed. And, what are we doing? And, when you only have a few people trying to, be there for all students, plus the faculty who is really struggling, it's just not enough. So, how do we get the supports, the funding, the resources to continue this work, because it's needed.
Yeah, and I know that we couldn't agree more, I think, on behalf of our president and our governance team. Amy?
Yeah, mental health supports. It's really, if there's one thing to advocate, of the asks that you're going to learn about later on in the summit, mental health supports for students is one of those. And I can't stress that enough. I see it day in and day out and realize that the need is much greater than the resources that we have available. And so if there was one of those asks that I had to pick only one to do, that would be the one. Mental health supports for kids and for staff.
Yeah. Megan?
I'm going to echo those sentiments, but actually add that kids need special education, AIS, they need more supports in that area as well, because I'm speaking as a mother of 2 special needs youngsters. I see what a toll that this pandemic has taken on them. I mean, they've been blessed to have wonderful service providers who are doing everything in their power to make sure that my children don't regress. However, we need to do more. There are kids right now whose academic and other needs in the classroom are really coming to light, and parents are starting to see that more because they became de facto teachers in the wake of the shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be more access to evaluation. There needs to be more access to supports. And I know that there's a shortage, there's a human shortage of those supports as well. We need to do more in with colleges and with higher education to make sure that we encourage kids to go into these fields so that we can give our youngsters more support in those areas.
And I know we would agree with you. And like I said, on behalf of our president, who is a school-related professional in a kindergarten classroom herself, and many of our governance team members who are school board members, paraprofessionals, educators, school leaders themselves, thank you. Heroes, we forget that all of the work that our superintendents and principals and school board members and teachers and transportation officials and school-related professionals did over the pandemic for our students, with synchronized and asynchronous teaching. And I'm gonna embarrass Dr. Yotis. Dr. Yotis and her husband goes in on the weekend and cleans our school because they want to make sure by Monday our school is the cleanest for our children. Megan, I'm going to embarrass you. I know Megan is literally, and Amy literally at all times of the evening on with their students, trying to catch them up. It's 10 o'clock at night and Amy says, oh, I'm on with the student, I have to call you back. And Megan, all of the time you are on with your students. These are the things that educators are doing to support their students. You do not get thanked enough. Thank you for working with your PTAs. Thank you for doing everything you do for our students. I'm so glad we could have this conversation. And thank you so much on behalf of Dana Platon, our president, who is on with us. And we're going to transition to actually talking about issues now. So ladies, thank you so much for being heroes in our book. And so now we are going to transition. So I'm really excited. We are going to flip over to our actual legislative summit, which is really, really exciting. So give me a second to get where I need to get. And this section is going to be featuring our advocacy team, who is in our summit committee, who's been working on these issues. And so we're going to have a series of 4 educational videos talking about the critical issues that we are doing today and the next few months, really to advocate for students. So I'm going to flip over to a video and then we'll be back. And we're running right on time. So I'm just fantastically excited about that.
Good evening. My name is Megan Zarkey. I'm the New York State PTA Education Coordinator. Joining me this evening is our Family Engagement Coordinator, Lissa Zukoff. And we're here this evening to talk to you about our first ask having to deal with the area of student mental health. There are currently several student mental health proposals included in the executive budget, which includes $100 million over 2 years for a new matching fund, the Recover from COVID School Program, or RECOVS, for high-need school districts to create or expand summer learning, after school or extended day and extended year programs to help students recover academically, and to support the hiring of mental health professionals, the expansion of school-based mental health services, and other evidence-based mental health supports to help students and school staff recover socio-emotionally. School districts will be required to match the state grant funding with their federal pandemic relief funds. While New York State PTA is supportive of this funding, we prefer funding to be non-competitive, non-matching, and available to all school districts in New York State.
The executive budget also includes $10 million to increase youth health suicide prevention programs. The executive budget also includes a proposal to integrate behavioral health services into pediatric primary care visits. New York State PTA supports these proposals.
So why do we support student mental health? Here are some fast facts. Did you know that half of all chronic mental illnesses begin by age 14? That 22% of youth experience serious mental illness in a given year. Early signs of mental illness are often mistaken for typical characteristics of childhood and adolescent development. As a middle school music educator myself, I see this all the time in my own classrooms, in my own building, with my own children. Half of all lifetime cases of anxiety disorders begin as early as age 8. Youth substance abuse may be an attempt to self-medicate symptoms of undiagnosed mental illness. The median delay between the onset of symptoms and treatment is 10 years.
Why do we support student mental health? Mental health support for our students must be of the highest priority. The pandemic has drastically increased the need for mental health services for students for many reasons: trauma, loss of loved ones, isolation, depression, anxiety. Now is the time where we need more services for students, more counselors, social workers, psychologists, and professional and support staff to see that each child, no matter their zip code, is adequately supported. Our ask is to ask the legislature to increase support for school-based mental health programs, services, and initiatives for our children. Please support more school counselors, more school nurses, more social workers, more school psychologists, and more mental health support staff. For further information on this and our other asks, please visit the New York State PTA website or email us with any questions. Thank you.
Good evening. We'd like to talk to you tonight about school nutrition. My name is Patricia Janko. I'm the health specialist for New York State PTA, and I'm from Nassau Region.
Hi, I'm Marianne Ferangelo. I'm the environmental specialist, and I'm from the Southeast region. We'd like to talk to you about why we support the universal school meals for all students. The New York State PTA supports a state-supported universal school meals program in case the federal program is not extended past the June 2022 to ensure that all public school students are offered breakfast and lunch free of charge. Universal School Meals program reduces the stigma for students unable to afford meals, increase the number of students fed during the school day, and assist districts in streamlining their meal service operations. California and Maine will launch statewide programs starting in the 2022 and 2023 school year.
So why is the school lunch program so important? School lunch is critical to student health and well-being, especially for low-income, high-need students, and ensures that students have nutrition they need throughout the day to learn. Research shows that receiving free or reduced price school lunches reduces food insecurity, obesity rates, and poor health. Children often rely on this service for their meals for the day, and we must ensure children get nutrition needed to maintain a healthy body and mind. Healthy meals also improve behavior, increase attention spans, and foster a positive academic experience. Research has shown repeatedly that participation in free reduced lunch programs increases learning in children.
Did you know that in 2019 and 2020 school year, 1.5 million New York State children, or 53%, participated in the free reduced school lunch program? This figure would have risen extensively from the pandemic if we didn't have free school meals now, but that's set to expire on June 30th in 2022. We must work to see that universal free school meals is available for all students, ensuring equity, removing associated stigma, and supporting all children in their wellness.
What we oppose. The New York State PTA opposes the transfer of the school lunch program from the New York State Education Department to the Department of Agriculture and Markets. New York PTA strongly opposes the transfer and asks the legislators to fully reject this proposal. Currently, the SED administers 5 federal child nutrition programs and other food programs that generate an astonishing $1.4 billion funding directly to the schools. Yet SED receives no state administrative funding to support the implementation of these initiatives. 45 states lay these critical food programs with their education departments, and this change to the agriculture and markets would actually require a federal waiver. Furthermore, the SED developed both the personal expertise and the technology over the years to administer these crucial programs for our children. These functions must remain in the purview of the SED, and we cannot accept anything less than the SED's fantastic commitment and full attention to our school lunch program.
Legislative opportunity. We are asking the legislator to support a New York State supported universal school meals program in the event that Congress doesn't extend the federal support. Our second ask is that we oppose the transfer of the New York State Lunch Program from the State Education Department to the Department of Agriculture and Markets. This critical program for students must stay within our State Education Department. We'd like to take the time to thank you for joining us this evening. And if you have any questions, please find Patricia or my information on the PTA's state website and email us with any questions that you might have. Thanks again.
Thank you. Good night.
Hi, my name is Amy Heisek, and I'm the Wellness Coordinator for the New York State PTA.
Hi, I'm Christina Arroyo Rodriguez, and I am the Juvenile Protection Specialist for New York State PTA.
We're here for our legislative summit to go through one of the asks, one of the issues that we are advocating for. This issue and this ask is about digital and tech equity. So we're here to explain and go through with you what the issue is, why it's important for us to advocate for this issue. So the executive budget for this year includes a bunch of initiatives to support the expansion of high quality, low cost, and affordable broadband access for families, especially rural broadband grants and digital equity programs. Our rural areas aren't ones that we normally consider. We normally consider issues about access to broadband in big cities and having it be a socioeconomic issue, access that way. But rural areas actually have access with getting broadband to be installed or having availability of broadband. So that is definitely a consideration. So the expansion of that is very important to our rural families as well. And New York State PTA definitely supports these proposals and having these proposals passed.
Yes. We also need to support free access to broadband for all low-income, high-need New York State families and continued tech and digital equity initiatives. And this is the part where the equity part takes place. A lot of students already have access. A lot of students already have these technologies. However, we want to take care of all our students. So those that don't, we want to be there to support them.
Absolutely. So the reason that we need these, the pandemic definitely brought a lot of these equity issues to light. They had existed before the pandemic, but it became so much more a critical piece, especially for education. We are definitely concerned, we as New York State PTA are concerned with the lack of broadband access in a lot of communities and the lack of devices that students have access to.
And according to survey data from the New York State Education Department, more than 215,000 New York State students do not have access to a computer, Chromebook, or tablet to use for their instruction in their schools. And 165,000 students lack internet access to fully participate in either home, remote instruction and learning, or just distance learning. And while we have seen these numbers improve, I'm not going to say post-pandemic, but as the pandemic has taken its course, the numbers are still not 100% of having these technologies and these opportunities. So until every child has both access and a device capable of connection, we have work to do.
And while the pandemic is definitely waning, thankfully, and the concern of having long periods of remote instruction or long periods of having students learning at home or from home, while that is less of a concern now, and schools are back to in-person learning and we are going to stay there, Lord willing. So we're doing all the best that we can to make sure that happens. But all of the technologies that did start to be in use during the pandemic and while remote instruction was happening for so those long stretches of time, those tools that teachers now have access to, that schools now have access to, those aren't going to just go away because we are back to in-person learning. Some of those tools and some of those technologies are phenomenal teaching tools. And so teachers have now incorporated those into their instruction that are also now being used while we are in-person instruction. So just because we are in person doesn't mean that the tech and the equity piece is on the back burner. This is still an issue. This is still going to be a continuing and ongoing issue that we need to make sure that we advocate for. So the eLearn Fund is really what we are looking into and asking people to support. We fully support the Senate Bill 3184 and the Assembly Bill 5180. And what this eLearn Fund would do is to establish or to provide free internet access to all school children aged 5 to 21 during the pandemic. And this would be made possible by a small assessment on the broadband providers.
So this is very important legislation because even pre-pandemic, there were digital equity issues. The pandemic simply highlighted them, as we have discussed. So we cannot believe that these equity issues were only pandemic dependent or contingent, and then after the pandemic, things will go back to normal. We don't want things to go back to normal. We want things to be better. We want to allow children to have all this access. So we continue to be concerned with the actual lack of broadband access in many communities. And even if it's low cost, some families just cannot afford these costs.
Absolutely. So the reason that this is so critical, those technology inequities that have existed, that the pandemic brought to light, we as New York State PTA are going to urge for very comprehensive action to see that all children and all families have access to that broadband. So it's not just a money issue, a financial issue, it's an access issue. Those rural communities do not have the ability to even bring the broadband in because it's not, the infrastructure doesn't exist in those communities. So part of what this legislation would do is to make sure that those access issues are removed and that broadband is brought to those communities, and so that the families in those communities do have that opportunity as well.
So in terms of what the PTA wants, we want comprehensive action, and this means addressing the issue not only from one channel but from all the sources that lead to this unequal or inequitable access and to technology and broadband access. So that's why we want to see all children and families have access to this.
Absolutely. So the asks that we have as New York State PTA are for us to advocate with our legislators to pass that eLearn Fund, to pass that legislation, to please legislate for free broadband access for all low-income families and all families with school-aged children, regardless of family income. Those are the asks that we need to be advocating for. And the one thing that I would say too is when you are in the meetings with those legislators, what makes the biggest difference for them and what catches their attention and has them pay closer attention to what it is that you're asking for is to have personal stories. If you have a student who was home during the pandemic, talk to the legislator during the meeting about the experience that you had as a parent, as a family, with issues with access or with issues with remote learning or issues with some of the technology not working, and what that's going to mean for the continuity of learning for our students. If we, even though we are back to in-person learning, using those tech tools and having access to those tech tools from home is going to help establish that continuity of learning. It's going to help children be able to continue and keep that momentum that we have now established again, now that we're back to in-person learning. So those are the things that they need to know. Those are the stories that they need to hear. So if you have any questions before you meet with your legislators, please talk to your team leads, reach out to any of us at New York State PTA. Again, I am Amy Heisick, and I am wellness at nyspta.org. So I am the wellness coordinator for New York State PTA.
I'm Christina Arroyo, and I'm the juvenile protection specialist. So that's juvenile protection at nyspta.org.
So reach out to us with any questions that you may have about what to say or how to say it. We definitely help walk you through that and talk to your team leads as well. Good luck and enjoy your meetings.
Good afternoon. My name is Rob Rios, and I'm the Leadership Development Coordinator for New York State PTA.
Yes, and I'm Patrice Racklin. We welcome you. I'm the Resolutions Coordinator for New York State PTA. and we're here to talk about school aid and support for your students. So, Rob, tell me a little bit about supporting school aid. How's the proposal? Is it good? Is it bad? What do we think?
Patrice, it's good that you asked. You know, everybody's raving. The foundation aid was passed. We have the assembly. We have all the votes. So yes, the executive budget did increase school aid by 2.1 billion, which is about 7.1%, including the 1.6 billion of foundation aid, and another $466 million in other programs, full funding for expense-based aids. But again, remember, foundation aid doesn't cover all the districts and their basic needs. So we do have to talk a little bit about expense aid that is needed and should be appropriated. So please make sure.
What is an expense aid? Before you go on, tell me that, because I'm unsure.
So expense aid is usually expenses that are outside of the not covered by foundation aid. I mean, they could be anything specific to your district or to your district's needs as well.
So are we talking like transportation, special education, library materials, technology, things like that, right?
Correct. Things that we typically say are not earmarked, but these are expense aids that, you remember a few years back, or when Cuomo was there, he tried to actually bundle some of these expense aids into one single bucket. So like the BOCES program. So it's very important to make sure that you are aware of what those expense aids are, because they can be budgeted or cut. So
yeah, I'm really happy that you said that. And I know that we also strongly support the fact that this current proposal does give each district a minimum year-to-year foundation aid increase of 3%. So I think it's wonderful.
One more thing, Patrice, to remember too, that this is all being phased in. So not all the foundation aid will come in. So depending on the district that you're at, if you're part of the Big Five, there's a higher percentage. So not all the funding will be there. It'll be phased in over a few years.
It's good to know that. So I have to go to my own district to find out exactly how much and what the phase-in might be.
Correct. But we have some sheets that can provide that information, or the school runs as well. So the information is available. What other support aid is there, Patrice? Can you tell me about some of the other?
Yeah, sure. We are very fortunate that there is funding for after-school programming, some early college, high schools, and P-TECH programs, and of course, always community schools and the Smart Schools Bond Act. These programs, after school, etc., are really important to children and parents. They provide a place for kids to go. The P-TECH programs provide great learning experiences. So these kinds of things we're really behind this. This is wonderful. Also, one great thing is there is a 11% increase for special act schools. And for those of you who are not sure exactly what that is, Special Act Public School is one that educates students from usually poor zip code areas in New York State. And those children usually will have learning challenges that will require much smaller classes, intensive counseling, and guidance. These schools serve students who are unable to attend community schools, usually due to disabilities, illness, behavioral challenges. So it's really important that the money that's being put there is increased. This is integral to such an important population in our schools. I'm really happy about that.
That's great information, Patrice. I'd never heard of special act schools, and I'm glad you went through the details of it. That is important to know.
Yeah. Another thing is this proposal supports building and transportation aid penalty forgiveness. That's something which allows school districts, if they made a mistake on their paperwork and there's an error in it, they will not be penalized. So it's kind of a really nice thing. We're not going to have a lot of fines and things rolling forward. They're just going to forgive them and move forward square one. So that's a really good thing. So I'm happy about that.
I'm glad we support that, Patrice, because I was out when I looked at this, I was like, do we make that many errors? And then do we need forgiveness for it? But again,
Well, unfortunately, sometimes a decimal point can make a big error. So I'm kind of happy that that's there. I love that forgiveness program.
great to know. Now, what is it? What are the other opportunities for a legislator? What bills are we supporting?
Well, of course, we are interested in everything pre-K. Some districts have pre-K and some a huge push to do universal pre-K. And this executive budget, which we are full support of, includes that $952 million to support public pre-kindergarten programs. We are going to be looking to the legislature for an increase. That's one of our asks. We would love an increase in funding for high quality school-based pre-Ks. You know, all children should be able to access high quality pre-K. It's something that's so important in today's world to get them off on the right foot.
That's good to know. And I know there's a lot of, there has been a lot of momentum for funding of pre-K because it does academically show a difference and an improvement. And specifically because of these last few years with the pandemic, I think that's critical. So it's universal pre-K should be funded all the way across. So that is a great ask.
Yes, I agree. What about childcare? I mean, my kids are grown, but what about you, Rob? Childcare.
Between the two that are in elementary and middle school and the one that's going to college next year, this is really significant. You know, not all the parents have the ability to work from home. And so, right, the childcare and having the kids attend school is very important. And as we know, childcare is expensive. I mean, you almost have to have a second job to pay for childcare alone. So again, this is a good opportunity to add some funding to allow the adults and parents to get back into the workforce, you know, and let the children go to school. And if they're home, that we can provide for them as well. So again, this is one that has surfaced significantly over the last few years because of the pandemic, and we've seen a gap.
Yeah, many families have faced a decision. Do I stay home, watch the kids and have issues, or can I, you know, have great childcare? And the fact that there will be increased subsidies and grants for families, which will really give much more access to many more people. I think that's really important. It gives our earliest learners the support they need, and it gives the families of those children their support. There's nothing to be said more than this is our future, and we really need to invest in it. So I do really think it's a really important ask. I think we're very fortunate that the budget has kind of come out. We're supportive of everything there, but our two asks, the pre-K and the childcare, are so integral to really completing the package.
Yeah, and just a footnote on the corporate side, we know that you know, there has been a lot of support for leave and for stay at home and extended leave. So this is again just a good opportunity to catch up with childcare.
I want to thank you and urge you to support the budget and to advocate for funding for pre-K and high quality pre-K and funding for childcare.
Yes, thank you again for joining us. We'll see you at our Ledge Lobby Hill to advocate for and with our legislators. So thank you again for joining us this evening.
Good night.
Helen?
Yes. Wow. I want to thank our legislative coordinator, Susan Fisher, and her amazing legislative committee for all their hard work to make this evening such a success. Bravo team. I also want to thank our wonderful New York State office staff for their tireless hours that they have put into this event. They work behind the scenes even tonight. Thank you all. I know team members have been answering questions while the presentation was going on, but in a few minutes, we will be going into our regional breakout sessions. If you have any additional questions regarding the PTA issues or the asks just presented, you will have the opportunity in the breakout sessions to discuss it with one of our team members. Before that, it is my privilege to introduce again our president, Mrs. Dana Platen, to say a few closing words. Dana?
Dana, you're going to come right on camera. And
There
you're
we
on
go.
mute. There we go.
All right, I know, I just keep talking. It's all good. So again, what a great night this has been. And the information that has been shared with all of you has been fantastic. All of the questions and comments that have been in the chat box tonight are just terrific. And we have been monitoring them. We have been taking notes, and we're recording this. So we'll also save those comments, and those are the kinds of things that we will be addressing. We always want to hear from our members, and so we appreciate the comments that you shared and your opinions and the feelings that you shared. So thank you all for the communication and for being honest and for those great questions. Before we break out into our training groups, I just want to take this opportunity to tell you how much we appreciate you and all you do, and the fact that you're all here tonight and you'll be participating in our legislative meetings. That really is huge. So, you know, together we are much louder than we are as individuals, because even though your single voice can make a difference, together our collective voices make a better, bigger difference. We're louder and stronger together. So when we all stick together and we make such an impact on our children's lives and what's going on in their schools, we're going to get more accomplished together. And so again, I appreciate that you joined us tonight. I want to thank you for your commitment and your dedication to PTA, for all that we stand for, and for your support as well. Together, we'll proudly shine a light on every child with one voice, because we're always doing the right thing for kids. We're going to break out into 6 separate trainings now based on your region. You receive those Zoom links in the same email that you received the Zoom link for this program. So I want you to go back to those emails or check the chat box, because those Zoom links are also in the chat box. If you don't actually know what region you're from, just write that question in the chat box and we'll direct you to the right place. If you still need a little help, if you just stay here, we'll definitely help you and assist you in finding the correct room. So before I say goodnight, I want you to know, if you haven't seen all of our social media posts and read our emails, tomorrow is our big membership jubilee in honor of Founders Day. And so please help us really break out into record membership numbers, and sign up a friend, sign up your husband or your wife, have your students join their PTSA, find your neighbors who haven't yet joined PTA and encourage them to join. Give a gift of PTA membership to someone that you know. It's really important that we boost our membership, because the more members we have, the louder our voices are. So please help us out, participate tomorrow in our Jubilee. And we're very excited about that. I mentioned earlier in the chat box that we very shortly will have our live link for our new Spiritwear store. And we have so many different kinds of shirts and sweatshirts and jackets and tote bags and all kinds of things in different colors with different logos. So I hope that you'll support us with that as well. And again, thank you to everybody. Thank you to the advocacy team, and in particular to Susan Fisher, who chaired this team to put it together. And my exceptional, ridiculously huge thank you to Kyle Belakopitsky, who was our executive director, who's just does amazing things for our association, along with our staff. And many of them are here tonight. Carol is our events associate, our events manager, and she works side by side with the committee. Dana Welch is here tonight too, and we couldn't do what we do without them. So with that said, go find your link for your breakout room and participate in our webinars. This summer, we're gonna have another summer leadership conference. Just stay tuned, participate and join in. And I look forward to seeing you soon, I hope, in person. Good night.